Hello, I am Thomas. I play guitar and I sing in Monolord. You're listening to Heavy New York.
What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at the St. Vitus basement, and we are here with Thomas of Monolord. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's so awesome to have you here. Your newest record, No Comfort, is an absolutely beautiful record. You just want to talk about how the making of this record was, the recording, and all that?
I think we had some leftover songs from Rust, just a few like unfinished things that we finished, and then we decided actually to record somewhere else for this record. So we were in a studio and we had a guy helping us out there, and it's the first time we recorded somewhere else actually. The other albums were recorded in our rehearsal space. So it was pretty much a big step for us going somewhere else to record.
Did that influence the sound of No Comfort at all?
I think it did, because the room we recorded live with, and we did it so we could like do some extra guitar takes or whatever. But we recorded the basics live, and the room where we recorded the drums sounded fucking awesome, compared to, because it was built for recording. Our rehearsal space was not built for recording, so it sounds really, really good in that room. So I think the thing I like most with the record is that the drums sound so good. Yeah.
That's awesome. You mentioned before that like there was a couple of songs on here that were left over from Rust. So conceptually, do you consider this a direct follow-up to Rust? Because I always thought that Rust sounded different from Veneer, and that sounds different from No Comfort.
Yeah, it's been when we recorded the first album, we said we don't want any limits. If we want to put on like 15 guitars on one song, but let's just do it to see what it sounds like. So that record was like over the top with like everything, and then we started thinking more production wise and started more dynamic sound, a few softer parts here and there, because the first record was just like full on all the time, more or less. And then we started to realize that we have a lot broader sound this time, maybe because of the production, but also the songs are a bit different. I think we and with Relapse also involved, the whole thing has gotten a bit bigger. So yeah, it's all good.
What I find unique, especially with this record, is I know that the title track No Comfort and the Bastard Child, those are 10-minute long songs, but I know the song before No Comfort was 4.5 minutes, and then so how do you know when to exactly finish a song, or how do you really tell when it's done?
I'm the one that's been writing most of the songs for Monolord, and then we arrange it together in the rehearsal space or redo it or whatever. So I make most of the time I have a song ready to present to the other guys, and we have a Dropbox account when we share stuff to each other, and I upload it there and the other guys can listen, and then we play it through, and sometimes you can feel, this part, it's just a feeling, this song is too long now, because I know the last song on Veneer, that's called Veneer, that song was originally 18 or 19 minutes, but we felt that it's good parts here and there, but we have to cut it down because it gets a little boring, and when you get that feeling, then you gotta shorten it. So and some songs, it's better if they are shorter sometimes, because then you want just to listen to it more and more, instead of one big. But some No Comfort, for example, I think that needs to be that long for everything to fit in there. Because if you would take a pop song that's 140 BPM or whatever, and you take it down to a 90 or 100, it's gonna take a while to get to the finish line. So just if it's slower, it takes longer. So
I think Like, and I mean, for your not to pigeonhole you, but for like the doom and sludge
Yeah.
metal, I feel like you thrive on a long. Like, if you were a hardcore band writing a 20-minute long song, I don't think it would work that well.
No, maybe, but it's a delicate, like, either you're on the right side of the line or just on the wrong side. It's sometimes hard to see for yourself when it's your own song, you know. But I think we're getting pretty good at not being the perfect amount of repetitive, you know. It's a thin line, but
Now, one thing I was always curious about is for you being a vocalist, do you need to hear music in order to come up with lyrics, or do you sometimes have a concept or a meaning in mind, and maybe that could help determine the outcome of the music?
yeah, it's either for the song "The Last Leaf," I had more or less the first part of the song finished, and then I had this idea of, you know, the movie The Road with the it's really like post-apocalyptic stuff, and I had an image in my head to be that person that walks through like a post-apocalyptic landscape, and everyone, you have to, like, you can trust anyone, and you have to like watch your back all the time. That I often think in like like a movie, for example, like I have like I don't know how to describe it in English, but I see like movie scenes sometimes, and then I write them down as best as I can, and sometimes I save on my phone like small bits of sometimes riffs, and sometimes it's just small lyrics, bits of lyrics here and there. And then when I write a song, I go through the list with like stuff I've been writing down, and sometimes it fits perfect, and sometimes it doesn't. So sometimes I have the music first, and sometimes there's a lyrical theme first. It's different from time to time.
When it comes to getting like inspired to write, do you have to like, does inspiration sometimes come out of nowhere? You mentioned you were watching The Road and that inspired The Last Leaf, but like, do you have to look for inspiration, or does sometimes inspiration come out of nowhere?
I think it's most of the time you get a feeling of a song, you get a vibe, and then like for No Comfort, it had this really heavy chorus, and I always felt when the first chord of the chorus, it's like a mountain is moving. I had that image in my head, so that triggered some lyrical ideas for that. So it's in the chorus I'm actually singing about like the end of the world, like mountains collapsing into the sea or whatever. So that lyric just came because of the song felt a certain way. So if it makes sense, I don't know. So yeah.
Now, one thing I was always curious about is because, you know, your music is so riff-driven as well. I was just curious on the type of guitar gear and, like, your amp tone on what you were using. If we could do a quick gear rundown, what's your weapon of choice?
Yeah, sure. I have a backline here in the US and one in Europe. The one in Europe is slightly bigger, of course, since that's where we live. So, and we have our rehearsal space here. We have to store everything, you know. So, yeah.
Sounds like a nightmare.
But I use orange amps both here and in Europe. And here I have Rocker Verb, and I also tried, the Crush. What's it called? CR120 or something?
Yes.
Yeah. So I actually bought it because it was pretty cheap, just to try it on for the last tour or the tour before that, and it sounds fucking great. So I'm thinking buying one have as a backup in Europe. And then use a Greco Flying V. It's been my main guitar since I bought it, more or less 5-6 years ago. And in Europe I'm using Dual Dark 100 and Over 100. But the V travels with me everywhere I go. So.
Because I just feel like with the style of music that you play, like you need like that certain effect and that certain crunch. Like I almost feel like there's like a required sort of gear setup.
Yeah, and I've been using the Boss Hyperfuzz more or less since day one. I know when we recorded our first demo with Monolord, I used the Big Muff, and it worked all right, but it sounds like everyone else kind of. And then I tried the hyper fuzz, and everyone said, yeah, it's just gonna sound like Electric Wizard or whatever. But as soon as I got it home and plugged it in, it's like, whoa, this is the fucking thing. I'm not gonna record or play with anything else for Monolord. And it's so gritty and yeah, I fucking love that pedal. It takes a while to dial it in, but when you do that, it's awesome. The thing is, when we fly in to festivals and there's like probably Marshall backline most of the time, and it sounds really bad with my gear, so it's horrible. So I had to put every treble and presence to 0, and it's horrible to get a decent sound of it. But it works good for my setup at least. Yeah.
And I have 2 more questions for you, but when it comes to playing your material live, because I feel like, your live presence are, a completely different experience than just simply listening to the album. Is there a similar energy that you put into your live presence as you do when you're writing music, or is it a completely separate mind frame altogether?
I think it's a pretty separate thing. I write most of my songs at home. I have like a small home studio thing, and sometimes I just mostly late at night, and sometimes all night I sit up and just record stuff. So I'm doing everything like by myself. So when we're playing live, the 3 of us that we're all doing like different things, and recording it's not even the same. Yeah.
I guess the live presence is more collaborative.
Yeah. And live we have some parts are the same every night, but some aren't, because we have, even though it might not sound like it, but we have some parts where we can jam a bit, even though we don't have any like fixed lengths for some parts, which I really appreciate, because I think today is our 347th gig or something, and I think we have played Empress Rising on every gig but one, I think, or something like that. So it gets boring after a while, so then you have to do stuff to make it both interesting for yourself and also for the audience. So that's why some parts here and there we switch it up sometimes. Yeah.
And the final question I wanted to ask you is, when I first discovered Monolord, this is going to sound a little weird, but like when I first discovered you, I thought you guys were from Portland, Oregon, because like of that doom sludge sound. I was really surprised that you guys are from Gothenburg. And I mean, I think it's fair to assume when most people hear Gothenburg metal, it's At the Gates, The Haunted, Soilwork. I'm representing today with Soilwork, but like what I was curious is, being that I feel like you guys, there's bands like Cult of Luna or Refused or Blindside that are a little bit different from that Swedish label, but like, are you guys affiliated in the scene with bands like maybe Graveyard or something like that, and maybe, or did you have to go outside of Sweden to get Monolord's name out there?
I think since we released the album on Riding Easy Records, that's in LA, we automatically got to begin with like a bigger buzz here in the US compared to back in Sweden or Europe, but it's getting better, and we really love like touring, and we love everything, but we're actually gonna take a short break soon also to get our batteries recharged, because we've played so much through the years. Did I answer your question?
Well, yeah, I was just wondering like if like you were affiliated more with the Swedish metal.
No, like the Graveyard guys, we know them. I know Jonathan, one of the guitarists, pretty good, and but we're not really like we've been doing gigs together or. So we haven't really played that much in Sweden. Just we did a shorter like weekend tour thing just recently. Stockholm, Gothenburg, Malmö, and even to Norway, to Oslo, like small Scandinavia run. But you can't really tour in Sweden. It's if you come to a smaller town on a Tuesday, and no one's gonna show up, because
From what I heard, like I've heard, I think it was satire, but like somebody wrote an article saying a person went to Sweden thinking it was going to be like Ozfest everywhere he went, and then he like goes there like with his like black metal shirts and realized, oh, it's not as metal as people.
No, not really, maybe, but there are a lot of shows around in Gothenburg, of course, and there's a few venues that's been there forever, and there's great shows, like maybe not every day of the week, but there's a lot of shows in Gothenburg.
Great festivals.
Yeah.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Is there just anything else you would like to promote for Monolord after this tour? You said you were going to maybe take a little bit of time off, but any tours coming up?
We're gonna, after we get home, we're gonna do a short 2-day thing in Germany, and then we're not gonna. We're saying we're not gonna do anything until like summer festivals, but I know how we work. If we get an offer good enough, we can't really help ourselves. But we have said this time that if we're going to do something like in the beginning of next year, it has to fucking pay really fucking well for us to do it. So, but yeah, we have nothing lined up really. We have a few proposals for festivals next year, but other than that, we're pretty much not booked for anything, and it's fucking awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Thomas.
Yeah, thank you.
There you go. Everybody, we are here with Monolord, No Comfort. Pick that up out on Relapse Records if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.